Director O'Donnell.
Steph, is the elbow still working? Where?
When I was down in Carolina, they answered everything.
Y'all.
No, he is. When it comes out.
Okay, I'd like to call to order the Gateway Board of School Directors Study Session Meeting, Tuesday, June 6, 2017. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like we have a roll call present, please.
Mrs. Byrne. Present. Mrs. Cerrucci. Here. Mr. Lapsevich.
Here.
Mr. Nola.
Here.
Mr. O'Donnell. Here. Mr. Ritter.
Present.
Mr. Stubenwort.
Here.
Mrs. Warning. Here. Mr. Williams.
Here. Do we have any residents that would like to speak on agenda items only? Is there any signed up on it?
No one signed up in advance.
Anybody wish to speak on agenda items only? Richard? Nobody?
No.
Section B, Mr. Schott.
Mr. Williams. Section B actually will be presented to the board at the regular board meeting. Specifically, we'll be presenting Section B1 list of bills for the month of June, Section B2 monthly financial statements for the month of May, and budget transfers for June as well.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Schott? Section C, items previously tabled. We have the capital repair improvement projects.
Anyway, as we discussed last term, and I think Bob probably has a list of the items, this $350,000 for the most part represents ongoing capital projects that occur with some frequency within the operating budget. This is not to be confused with the $3.819 million capital project. And if anybody has questions about it, I think it's been talked about at the budget session, and where else, Paul?
At the budget and buildings and grounds meeting.
Okay, so if anybody has any questions, Bob's here with a list.
Kenny?
This isn't an action item.
No,
Oh, do we need to untable it though, so we can vote on it in 2 weeks?
we're not going to vote tonight on that.
No,
In
it'll just
2
be
weeks?
2 weeks, do you want on table?
You got the quick
Do we have
list?
to untable it to speak about it?
Do you want Bob to?
Yes.
Motion to untable.
There's a
Second.
motion on the table, a
We're fine.
second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
What are we doing?
Opposed, same size, untabling.
It's not on table. Now you can
Now we
speak
can
to it.
speak about it.
Bob, do you have a list of items with you?
I do not.
Bob, do you have them memorized?
But Mr. Schott has it handy.
If I could, I just want to address one item with this, is that actually these items that represent the $350,000 actually would be an additional amount to the capital reserve fund. So one of the things that, by not voting on it this evening, let me just say that, is that it does cause a little bit of an issue in terms of finalizing the general fund budget. Because again, as previously was done back in December, we approved the $3,819,000. Again, the same amount which we just reviewed at the final public hearing up in the LGI. So if it would be the desire of the board to do these projects that comprise of $350,000, we would need to have them approved so I can adjust the amount. And specifically what it would do, as we're going to see later on this evening, in terms of where the general fund budget is, the extra $350,000 would increase the general fund budget to $76,032,000, or 6.85% over the current 6.36%. That would also show in there what we would have to do. We would show the transfer of fund balance to the capital reserve fund as an expenditure and the utilization of fund balance. that would increase that amount to $4,169,000. But again, in terms of it, we're looking at timing perspective with this. You know, the one thing that I can't do is to have it, the resolution as it sits at the current amount, and then have this approved. Or it could be approved, and I could have a second resolution, just as I have right here, for that. That's what.
Be approved in 2 weeks prior to the passing of the 17-18 regular budget, correct?
Yeah, if it would, basically, as I have right now, I have a second resolution, so if it's desired to hold off to the 20th to vote that evening, if it doesn't pass, then the resolution as it is right now would stay the same for general fund budget. If it wouldn't, then I would read the alternative resolution that shows the amount in it. That would be the other alternative to that, as opposed to not doing it tonight.
Wait, we're not, we looking to vote?
I was going to make the motion.
No, because
There's two options.
I would like to,
Two options with it.
yeah, I understand. I would like to have the detailed list of the 350,000. I would also like to know if those things, if any of them, can be covered under any part of the regular budget, or if we can maybe get rid of maybe something in the regular budget to cover some of these things. You know what I'm saying? Like, I gotta know exactly what these things are. I don't want to be spending $350,000 tonight.
And Neil, to your point, I mean, I went through with Bob Brown and we went through looking at some of these items. So we have $37,000 set aside for window replacement up at the press box. If you go up there, there's only about 3 or 4 windows that actually need replaced, and it's replacing all of them. All the ones that weren't done last year. There is money for, or what is it?
I could go down through these, Chad, if you'd like.
Well, there's just some, I mean, some of them
Just-
are
I can-
definitely necessary.
Yeah, I mean, I can. let me
But you
run
know,
those.
carpets in the administrative office, if we do just the hallways, that saves a whole heck of a lot of money on moving, because then we don't have to pay people to move all the furniture out. And the carpet in the offices isn't that bad. In the hallways where people are walking each and every day in the administrative offices, it is bad. So we can tweak it a little bit and save, you know, substantial money.
Yeah, I mean, I would recommend not voting on this tonight and trying to get the details and seeing, I just think that there might be opportunities to fit some of these things in to the regular budget.
You'd be looking to
Maybe.
cut something else, which honestly, I don't see where else we could cut. I mean, we're open if there's some specific areas you'd like to have us look at.
Well, there's other areas
look
that
at it.
I think we should explore as well. So for instance, we're looking at doing the gym floor up at the high school. We could easily get a sponsor to pay for that. So if you look at like Duke's court, they have, you know, Welcome to Coach K's court on the one side. We could put Forbes or UPMC East or put something if they're willing to pay that $30,000-$40,000 to resurface the entire floor. So those are just ways we have to think about looking outside of the box and save money.
It's an idea, but I mean, the only thing that I'll bring up, and I'm sure Mr. Brown would also chime in terms of the timing perspective, that we're looking at a short window.
Well, it takes about 2 weeks to do the
some of
floor.
these projects, you know, some of these projects for that.
Can we pull out some of the projects, like the asphalt, the roof, what do you call it, the ceiling of the parking lots?
Well, that,
And-
I'm saying that's definitely needed. That's something.
No,
that
I
we'll
mean,
look
pull it
for.
out to vote on it, and approve that only, and put some of these other things on hold.
Can we work on this over the next week and then come back to us with a
We can provide
more definitive?
an itemized list in our board packet, costing out every item.
That would
Or-
be way more beneficial, and then we
Very
can,
best
I mean,
then we can
did,
decide what
idea
the.
about-
not everyone,
like an à la
not
carte.
everybody was there, but we did talk about, he reviewed these items at the budget meeting. I think it was a budget meeting, and there was 2 or
There's
3 of
4
us
of us,
there. And we tabled it because Chad had a good point. A lot of people hadn't had an opportunity to look at it, including the public. So we wanted the public to be able to have time to look at it. I don't think any of us are not in favor of doing any of the projects. I think we just wanted to allow time for everybody to look at it and maybe tweak it. I mean, I'm totally in agreement with Chad on the carpet. If we can save $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 here and there, all that adds up and can be put into things that are more necessary. I'm not so sure I'm, sold on all the windows if they're not needed either, so. But I don't want to delay the resealing of the parking lots over the summer either.
Mr. Brown, what's your timeline on this? I'm sure all
Well,
of them
there's different items on there, so that timeline does vary as far as that goes.
Is there anything that can't wait 2 weeks?
No, there is nothing that can't wait 2 weeks. It's, it's for the budget year of 17, 18, so we have, a time frame to get it. We're not necessarily trying to get these things done this summer. We're trying to get them done in this fiscal year.
Okay.
All right.
Any other
Do we
questions?
want to just table it again? or-
No, just leave it on the table.
Within the board packet, itemized.
No, but it's off the table. I'll make a motion to table it,
Why?
because it's off the table
Yeah, but it's
now.
not an action item.
Yeah,
We're
you're
not
not taking
voting.
any action tonight.
There's no voting.
Fails due to necessity.
This is just a study session.
So now, so where's it at when we talk about it next?
It's ready to be acted upon if you choose to.
Okay.
So it would remain in the table section, just to be clear.
No.
No,
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 she's saying,
It's been on table. It'll be under
yeah,
administrative.
it's
resolution.
now, it can be,
Move
it
to
can be an
administration.
action item next Tuesdays from now. Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Bonnie, we will list those out for the administrative resolution.
Absolutely, okay.
Okay?
Section D, personnel agenda. Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. We have items 1 through 4 listed. Under section 1, we have transfers per the collective bargaining agreement. We've added 1 additional extended school year teacher. There are some supplemental contracts that were being issued, along with volunteers being approved for this last week of school.
Questions or comments on section D? Hearing none. Section E, conferences and conventions. Do we have any? Section F, administrative resolutions. Mr. Short.
Thank you. We do have an action item tonight. I do know Mr. Brown, Micah, he's on standby. We have an action item for tonight involving technology that is tied to the 17 and 18 school budget. Micah, if you can quickly review this item and what the board would be voting on tonight.
Yeah, so there's a few items that we're requesting. First of all, it's the lease agreement for our Mac Pro laptops. These would be replacing some aging laptops that the staff currently has. We're looking at covering those laptops under a warranty program that will protect it from any manufacturer defects as well as accidental damage. We're also asking for the purchase of 700 iPads under a 3-year lease agreement for the Mossad Middle School one-to-one project, as well as staff devices for that building. Those will be under a 2-year warranty agreement, similar to the laptops. We'll also be getting 19 charging stations for the iPads to be charged in the classroom, as well as charging cables for them to be plugged in.
And Micah, the reason for the action item tonight is to begin the process of...
Yeah, getting the hardware in and set up. From talking with our Apple sales representative, he said due to all the schools ordering on July 1st due to their budget cycle, there is a several-week delay in getting hardware if we wait. If we order it now, we could potentially start getting the hardware within the next week or two, and we'll be in a better position to get ready for next school year.
Can I just make my comment? From what I understand, you're having a conversation with Apple today, and the price had increased, which you had talked them down to.
Yes.
Why don't you go into that so then you know that how much you saved by doing this action item tonight?
So that, in that case, it's cost neutral. So when I first put together this quote and sent it out to the board members, we got one price from Apple. Since then, in fact, just yesterday afternoon, Apple announced new hardware and would actually replace what we would be purchasing. Because it's so new, Apple initially had a higher cost for us. However, due to some talks with them, we're able to get the price down to the original agreement. So we're getting the latest hardware from Apple now at the old price.
Which is savings about 11%, correct?
From retail, yes.
I have a few questions.
Okay.
What is the game plan for the technology? Because we did this 4 years ago. We purchased a bunch of iPads, a bunch of technology, and there's no game plan in place. In fact, just at our last curriculum meeting last week, or 2 weeks ago, we had asked because we had purchased new math curriculum, and we were looking at, okay, I thought we were using the iPad textbook that one of our teachers helped develop, and then we said, no, we're not using those anymore. I had asked, well, what are we doing with those iPads? And I think we jokingly said, oh, they're sitting in one of the docking stations in the classrooms. So just purchasing 700 iPads doesn't do anything for the district if there's no plan behind it. So what is the actual plan as far as, one-to-one, it sounds good, it's this buzzword right now in education, but if there's no plan in place other than, hey, we're gonna get iPads and there's a few apps we're gonna use on them, I'm just curious as to what the actual plan is.
I think all three of us can maybe chime in, because we've been working on this process for probably 6 months now, visiting different schools, seeing how the technology is used. But there's no question that the professional development is the critical component to everything you do with technology. And it's something that just can't be dropped into a classroom, into students' hands and teachers' hands, and then kind of left behind after the 2 to 3 day initial professional development. This is going to be ongoing, sustained professional development. It's going to be tied in with our Pearson platform that utilizes the Envision Math, Ready Gen, and also the My Perspective reading program that we will have as well. Guy, if you want to talk about the Google.
This goes hand in hand with the Google. But the technology, as Mr. Short alluded to, the professional development is what's crucial. It's really not about the technology, it's about the teaching and learning that goes along with it. So we'll have a plan. We've already started developing an action plan of sustained professional development that's going to be ongoing. And later on in the meeting, you'll see where some of it's actually going to be an embedded professional development that we're able to take advantage of.
And that's the key component. I completely agree with the two of you, but we don't have that plan yet in place. So we're purchasing, all of this technology with really no plan in place. And it's just reminiscent of the last time we did that $3 million purchase over 3 years, and there was no plan in place then either. Then the other thing from a cost standpoint, and I know I revisit this every year, but we ask how many people have iPads of their own. So Mary Beth, you have children in school. Do they have iPads?
They both have iPads.
They have iPads. Stephanie, you have kids in school. Do they have iPads?
Well, I wouldn't feel comfortable sending my kids with their personal iPads into school, to be honest. And I think that that's a concern too with a lot of other parents, especially when iPads are being offered for free by the district, because things can happen in the district. It might be of no fault of your own children. But sort of going off of what you're saying, I agree with what you're saying. We need the training, the teachers need the training. But I guess my question is, in the next 3 months, does administration have the plan of utilizing the iPads, and what kind of training the teachers need to utilize the iPads? Is that the intention of administration?
We've visited several school districts. I was part of a one-to-one distribution, very familiar with it. Mr. Brown and I have been talking about it. We already have the plan kind of in draft form, but kind of waiting to make sure that it's approved, and once approved, and we'll put it in a Friday update for you.
Okay. So there is definitely an intention of administration to train the teachers and utilize the iPads next year.
That's correct, because if we don't, they're just going to be, we'll just be sitting.
Expensive giveaways.
The checks and balances associated with that, because, clearly, as I've mentioned before, whenever technology is more or less dropped into the classroom and then kind of left, sometimes it could be left on the shelf. So within the Act 82 and part of the Danielson model, we're going to be looking to truly see that the technology is being utilized effectively in the process of the development of the lesson plans and also the curriculum.
And I can appreciate that. I don't mean to keep harping on this and sound like I'm really, really nailing down on this or being over, I don't even know what the word is there, but I feel like we're purchasing this technology without the plan in place. Typically, we should have a plan in place and then say, okay, here's the plan. Now we need 700 iPads to implement the plan. So without seeing a plan,
I think if they're guaranteeing us a plan for fall, so that these aren't sitting there for 6 months,
and I can
because of the
appreciate that.
time constraints, I'm okay to order them. But
I can definitely
I think
appreciate
that
that.
Chad's point is well taken. We don't want to buy these iPads if you're not going to have a plan by fall, because they're going to just sit there and go down in value, and we don't want $700 paperweights.
There is the framework of the plan in place.
Okay.
As Dr. Rossi was stating here, in order to move forward, we did want to have these purchased with Micah to get those in stock and get those ready to go. That's all part of the plan, because as some of our teachers can remember from our previous engagement with laptops and infrastructure, when it's kind of dropped off the first day when you arrive on August 25th, and then you're setting up, you're downloading information, and then not even having the professional development, and maybe a day or two, that is when those problems persisted and continued to happen. So the plan is in framework. We do have an idea of what and how we're going to do with the iPads, and we're just looking for the authorization to purchase those, to move ahead and to get those into the classrooms and eventually into our teachers' hands before the start of the school year.
Yeah, and then the last thing, I know we've been talking about this for a while, from the purchasing standpoint, I was alluding to, people already have iPads. On the flip side, there's people that don't have iPads because they can't afford iPads. We had discussed this last year, looking at purchasing a large amount of technology, and we decided to hold off for another year, which leaves us to where we're at today. When we had discussed that, we had looked at leasing options with individuals within the district. So for instance, a family can't purchase an iPad that costs $600, but they could afford $25 a month. So they could get on a payment plan through the district, purchase it, and then they have that. That is huge, because now they can, at home over the summer, utilize that iPad and have that moving forward. For people that already have them, again, we just have duplication of services. If people are receiving $700, $600 iPads for Christmas, then now you're saying, well, you can't take that to school, you can't use that, so you're going to have two different ones. Again, I'm sure there's some people that would like to use their iPad, have it with them, continuation of, hey, what we're doing in school, we're going to use at home too. So those are just areas that we had said we were going to look into last year. We obviously haven't, and those are areas I would like to look into to save taxpayer dollars. I mean, if people are already purchasing iPads in Monroeville, if they feel comfortable, let's do it. If not, if someone wants to pay for one and keep it after that 3 or 4 year, we should do that as well.
Michael, can you talk a little bit about how we may lose control of the actual device if it's a BYOD environment, where we lose control over what control we would have if we have our own?
So when students bring in their own device, which is why we try and steer away from heavily pushing BYOD in the district, is when a student brings in a device, we can't control anything on the device. We don't know what software that student has installed, if there's antivirus on there, or even what apps they have. There's a lot of apps that we have in the district that we're only permitted to install on district-owned devices. So it's possible, even if we have everyone bring in a device, we're limited in what we can use that device for in the classroom. We might not be able to install apps. A teacher might have problems in the classroom because everyone has a different device. How can they support all those different devices? And even from our standpoint, from a technology standpoint, us helping so many different devices, it's difficult. So by standardizing, by us purchasing the technology, we can unify that. Now, coming from your standpoint about students buying it over the course of their career here, that is a possibility. Initially, this is going to be focused on keeping the iPads in-house, but we could move to that model in the long run. But that's, I think, once it gets working in the classroom fully, then we could see how to expand that program from there.
I'm just saying that could be, a third of the students, a third of those 700 iPads. That's quite a reduction in cost.
And this lease agreement is compatible with that. So once we acquire the device through the lease, we are free to resell it in any way we see fit.
Thank you.
Did you just say, just curious, that these are only staying in the school?
Initially, yes. So a lot of the issues that we had with Gateway Middle School's one-to-one initiative was the challenge of either kids taking home the iPad, forgetting them, or not charging it. So since we're focusing on Moss Middle School and due to the age of the students, we are going to focus on using those iPads in the classroom. Once the students learn how to use the devices appropriately, then we could permit them to take it home. But initially, it's going to be a school-focused device.
Question, Micah, are they going to do anything? I know that there has been problems in the past with the students taking iPads home that get broken, and that, will there be insurance that covers, or what would be?
When devices start going home, we would offer an insurance program to the district. However, the district is purchasing this AGI repair plan, which will protect us. So if any device gets broken accidentally, it will still be covered on our end. We could choose to pass some of those costs on to the student, but we would be able to do that.
Thanks.
Just so the public is aware, this process, as I mentioned, started 6 months ago where we really did a needs assessment. I asked Mr. Brown in the technology department, in partnership with the two assistant superintendents, to really provide central office with a comprehensive list of all the technology within the buildings, including age ranges, laptops, iPads, etc. Once we had an idea of what we currently own, possess, and what is truly, as Mr. Sudenberg said, being utilized, and that was the important piece, led us to then branching out and visiting area districts that have implemented either one-to-one or iPad initiatives throughout the districts. And looking internally at our district, we saw that Mossad Middle School, I think, has been neglected over the years with technology based on a number of different reasons, but first and foremost being, the idea that every year the building's going to close. And it was kind of put off, and here we are 7, 8 years later, and there's Mossad Middle School right there. So we felt it was important that, when we move from the K-5 level or K-4 level into the 5 and 6 buildings with the iPads at the elementary, that they will sustain themselves in the 5 and 6 building. The plan would eventually move on to the high school level, where we've had some discussions and looked at some buildings with laptops, specifically what's the name of the laptop?
MacBook?
No,
Or
student.
Chromebook? Oh,
Chromebooks.
yeah.
Chromebooks, yes. So there's a 3-year comprehensive plan for technology.
Mr. Short, I'd like to say I'm comfortable with the approach that you've taken to move one step forward with the planning and the creation of the detail level of those plans. Because if you had gone to the nth degree and created the plan and then come back to the board and said, okay, now we need 700 pieces of hardware, and we said, no, you're not going to get it, you would have wasted all that time to plan. So it's good to design a high-level plan, then fund and make sure you're going to get the hardware and see what capabilities the hardware has, and then match the detail level of the plan to the hardware that you're going to purchase and configure. Now, do you agree?
Correct.
Now, Maiko, isn't it true that bring your own device also brings an enormous amount of headaches to the IT controller when trying to manage the configuration of devices? So let's say, for example, one device has 2 gigabytes of memory and another one has 8 gigabytes of memory, and when you load a couple pieces of software on it, the one that doesn't have enough memory keeps blanking out, freezing up, and then they call somebody and say, come fix this, it's broken. It's not really broken, it's just configured differently. It doesn't have the same amount of horsepower or applications or links or software upgrades or firmware upgrades. So all of that, when we call you to come repair it or take a look at it, costs your time, and your time is valuable, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what I'm saying is, all of these things need to be sort of pieced together. There's no, magic way to do this. So I'm happy that you come to us and say, it would be good to purchase these right now. If you really, really could do it, we'd be happy that you would do it. Well, thank you for inviting us to do it. Now we've got to figure out whether we should take the step right now, take an action item or resolution, and get that window open for Maiko to go ahead and get these things ordered sooner rather than later. If we feel comfortable with Bill Short's offer to go ahead and create the detailed plan according to the synchronized method of developing the plan, then I think the board is free to go ahead, grant a resolution tonight, opening the door for Maiko to make that order. That puts the pressure on the administrators to go ahead and begin to develop, based on what we're going to get in the next phase of the project. Is that right?
And we will continue to update the board within the board packets, the thorough plan as we move forward leading up to the opening of school.
Any questions?
Maiko,
Yeah.
It says it's a 4-year lease agreement. At the end of those 4 years, I assume we own?
That's correct. It's a dollar buyout lease. And how we're handling our current laptops is we will be giving the option to the staff member who used the device to buy the laptop, and if they choose not to buy it, then we would sell it to either another staff member or a community member. So we would, be recouping any amount paid into this program.
All right, so restate your request of the board for tonight, please.
Looking for, request of approval to purchase, for advanced purchase of technology for the 2017-2018 school year.
And you would prefer that we not wait 2 weeks to do that, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, so board, what do we think?
Well, I think there's some other action items to go through, and then we'll vote.
Okay, that's fine, then we'll get to it. Thank you very kindly.
Thanks, Micah.
And I do want to say while you're there, Michael, thank you for informing me. We've had some issues with keeping everyone in the loop, so thank you for doing that.
Do we want to take these one by one, or just?
Whenever you want. One by one.
Do you want to do one by one?
Review all of them and then vote individually? Whenever he wants. Do them one by one.
Let's do one by one.
Okay.
So moved for number 1.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Stubenfort, second by Mr. Nola. Questions or comments on?
This is number 1, the
Yes,
technology equipment
the
lease
one we just
agreement.
spoke about.
No
Questions
questions.
or comments? Bonnie, can we have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Cerucci?
Aye.
Mr. Lapsevich?
Aye.
Mr. Nola?
Aye.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Aye.
Mr. Ritter?
Aye.
Mr. Stubenfort?
Aye.
Mrs. Warning?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mrs. Byrne?
Motion carries. Number 2.
Item number 2 is a carryover of the food service policy number 808. We've had, I believe, 2 committee meetings on the language, and 808 went up for public display for 30 days, and we asked for the action item to approve this moving forward.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Stubenfort, second by Mr. Nola. Questions or comments on policy number 808, food service?
I have a comment to make. I was all in favor of running for 3 years until something came to sight last week, and I would like to, I'm going to vote no on this, to accept this policy, and further discussion could be taken at the policy meeting on the 22nd.
Any other questions or comments?
Can you help me understand that? So if we all follow your lead and we all vote no tonight, then we can discuss it at the policy meeting upcoming? But if we all vote yay and outvote you, then it's passed. So why would we want to discuss something that's been passed at the policy meeting?
It hasn't been passed yet.
He's saying if we do vote to approve it.
Correct.
Right.
So he's asking for you to
Yeah.
talk about it now, I believe.
Yeah.
So is there something that you've told other members that you haven't told some of us that we know about before we vote on this?
Well, for this policy that has been on display that we have discussed about for a 3-year turnaround, there were 4 people that were here, myself, Mr. Lapsevich, Mr. Williams, and Mr. O'Donnell. We went up to have lunch, but we were too late to get there for lunch on Friday, and we just decided to take a walk through the refrigerators, freezers, and came about some food that has been sitting there since 2014 again, which has been over the 3-year limit. It's from April of 2014. I can't go with, it was an oversight, or we missed it, blaming it on the new hiree that was just there because he just started. There were turkeys that we were told at one of the meetings here that he had to have it passed that evening to know that he could order it for 3 years. There's turkeys there from 2015. Why weren't they used yet? There's an awful lot of food that's sitting there that hasn't been used, and why do we need to order more until this is done? So I think there needs to be more discussion and explanations why this food hasn't been put out, that has expired.
So was there a lot, like several boxes of food
Yes,
that was?
ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
Why don't you just make a motion to table it instead of voting no?
I don't want to table it. I want to vote it. I'm going to vote no. I do not want to.
So that
vote
would
on
mean
this.
you must be pretty confident you have 5 people that are going to vote with you.
No, I don't. I'm just,
So you do understand that by voting no for this, you're actually, the policy that would stand in place is indefinitely for the food. So a no vote to this tonight actually opens it up that you would be able to keep the food forever in accordance with the FDA guidelines. So if you do want to revisit it, what I would recommend doing is vote yes, because this makes it much more prohibitive on the food service department. And if you'd like to go and become even more restrictive in the future, you can do that. This has been on 30-day display. This has been discussed, I don't know, for hours in this boardroom. I believe, just from a logical standpoint, that the best thing to do if you believe a problem exists is to put a stringency on them and say, okay, now you're limited to 3 years. Because right now, if you go in there and you said, oh, this was 3 years and 1 month, is what your example was, well, that's completely legal as FDA standards imply. So if we now put a 3-year limitation on that, and then you go in and find something at 3 years and 1 month, then you have a legitimate argument. So I would urge all board members to put the restrictive policy on the food service, which we've discussed, which has been in accordance with the food service, well, you know, the guy that's a specialist here about food policy. So I would recommend we pass it as is. If you believe that there's a time and a place later on in the future to become more stringent, then in all means do so. But 3 years is definitely better than indefinite.
We have a policy meeting on the 22nd that I hope to bring that up, put that on the agenda for the policy
The
meeting.
last policy meeting I was at, we had said we're going to discuss this policy. And as some in attendance can recall, the policy was not discussed until I brought it up and pushed for it to be discussed. So again, but you know, I would respectfully say let's pass it. If you want to become more stringent with it and you have the board support to do so, by all means go ahead and do so. So.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that, Val, because if someone has done something that's not correct, then they should be held accountable and disciplined or something like that. So the policy won't do that. So I think if we go ahead and pass this policy, put the 3-year limit on it, and then find that people aren't adhering to the policy, they can be held accountable, because that's the goal, right?
Yeah, right now, there's no accountability. You're upset because there's something in there from April 2014, but it's not violating a policy until you pass this. If you pass this, it's now violating a policy.
I think the
So I
policy
agree
is
with
good,
what
the
they're saying.
implementation could be troublesome, and that's what we want to attack,
You're
right?
upset because something in there is
Well-
old, but it's not violating a policy right now as it's sitting there.
Well, I'm looking at the turnaround time for the food that's there. We don't need to have as much food there that is there.
That's fine, but the policy limits.
Yeah, but that's a different topic.
Yeah, that's
I
a
mean,
different
you're-
issue.
Without this, then it's, there is no timeline.
Yeah, I think
Keep
this-
frozen, they can keep it forever.
Yeah, I think this is the right way to go.
Well, who's to say at the policy meeting on the 22nd that it's not a different,
If you want to make
Timeline.
it 2 years
It's not-
then,
If you want to make it 2 weeks.
Yeah,
and
you
on the
could do
22nd,
that
go ahead and
then.
use it.
Right now, if you vote no to this, then it reverts back to unlimited time.
If the board votes, not one
Right.
person, but, yeah.
But if the board would approve this, then you
Then there's a
actually hold
3-year
them
limit
to the
as
guidelines.
policy, until a new policy would be.
Which is why I would urge everyone pass it so we have some guidelines in place.
And with that, you can also reprimand.
That's, I think that's a good compromise.
So Bill, do we know what other school districts do and how long they keep frozen meats and cheeses?
It varies really, because you're looking at apples and oranges. Some districts do operate internally similar to ours, where other districts subcontract out to Aramark and different services. But for the most part, product does come in through the bid process that Martin has discussed. There are other options. I came across an article that I forwarded to Martin, Mrs. Warning, about Deer Lake School District, where they operate once a week, and it's a local, if you want to call it,
Farm to
farm, that they bring in fresh product and serve the kids 1 day a week. And that could be meat, cheese, vegetables, and it's all brought in fresh. So there are options out there. There's various ways of handling it. Martin, I did share that article with him. He said he would look into the possibilities of exploring that similar technique that they use at Deer Lakes.
Thank you for looking into that, Val.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, can we have a roll call, Bonnie?
Mr. Lapsevich?
No.
Mr. Nola?
aye.
Mr. O'Donnell?
No.
Mr. Ritter?
Aye.
Mr. Stubenborg?
Aye.
Mrs. Warning?
No.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mrs. Byrne?
No.
Mrs. Cerucci?
Yes.
Motion carries. Number 3, Mr. Short.
I would defer to Mr. Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Short. Item number 3 is the payment to Forbes Road Career and Technology Center, the estimate operating and administrative expenses for a 16-17 fiscal year in the total amount of $745,364.27 as depicted in Exhibit C. Basically, by making this payment now instead of waiting to the 20th, ourselves and the other 8 member school districts need to be able to release the funds to Forbes so they can pay off their current year revenue anticipation note in a timely manner. So this enables us to be able to send a check out to Forbes tomorrow so they can do that in a timely manner.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Stuvenport, second by Mr. Nola. Questions or comments? Seeing none, roll call. Bonnie?
Mr. Nola?
Aye.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Aye.
Mr. Ritter?
Aye.
Mr. Stuvenborg?
Aye.
Mrs. Warning?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mrs. Byrne?
Aye.
Mrs. Cerucci?
Aye.
Mr. Lapsevich?
Motion carries.
Item number 4 is also another final payment to Singer Equipment Company for purchase and installation of a new double combination oven for cafeteria fund for the current 16-17 fiscal year as depicted in Exhibit D. This is the final balance payment of $42,157.82. Again, this enables the district to be able to release the payment to the vendor. What we're required to get from the vendor once they receive the check is a paid in full invoice, which the district must submit to the Pennsylvania Department of Education prior to June 30th.
And that's because this came from a grant?
Yes, it's a federal grant. So once they receive that from the district, they'll be able to release our funds in the total amount of $43,376.72. So at the end of the day, we net out to receiving a brand new oven for Evergreen Elementary School.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Stuvenport, second by Mr. Nola. Question, comments? Roll call. Bonnie?
Mr. O'Donnell?
Aye.
Mr. Ritter?
Aye.
Mr. Stuvenborg? Mrs. Warning?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mrs. Byrne?
Aye.
Mrs. Cerucci?
Aye.
Mr. Lapsevich? Mr. Nola?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item number 5, again, another item for Forbes Road Career and Technology Center is their revenue anticipation note for the 17-18 fiscal year. The total amount of $4,400,000 with an interest rate of 1.89% as depicted in Exhibit E. Again, this enables us to provide the approval to Forbes so they are able to get all their required paperwork on time to receive their revenue anticipation note for next fiscal year.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Stuvenport, second by Mr. Nola. Questions, comments? Seeing none, Bonnie, roll call, please.
Mr. Ritter?
Aye.
Mr. Stuvenborg?
Aye.
Mrs. Warning?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mrs. Byrne?
Aye.
Mrs. Cerucci?
Aye.
Mr. Lapsevich? Mr. Nola?
Aye.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Motion carries.
Item number 6 is our annual approval of our district insurance coverage policy renewals for 17-18 fiscal year as depicted below and also as depicted in Exhibit F. This enables the district to be able to write in necessary checks for premium amounts due in advance and to be able to bind all the various coverages in time prior to July 1st. For
So moved.
upcoming fiscal year.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Nola, second by Mr. Stuvenport. Questions or comments? Seeing none, roll call. Bonnie?
Just one real quick. Can you go over again why we're doing this now as opposed to in 2 weeks?
Sure. Yeah, it just enables us more time to be able to process. There's a number of these policies that require us to write the checks up front. So we would like to be able to get that in a timely manner to the agents so they're able to make those purchases. And again, various other documents that have to be signed off upon in order to bind it prior to that. We've done this, this will probably be the 3rd year we've done it at the study session. It just seems to work out a lot better in terms of instead of being a compressed period, late in the month to be able to do that.
Very good, thank you.
You're welcome.
How often do you rebid the insurance coverage?
Every year.
It's been a while for this, but with most of these coverages, it's actually PSBA,
Okay.
which is now CM Region. They're very specific in terms of how they're geared to the district for that. They do quite a bit for the district for that. In terms of finding like another apple to apple for some of those items, it's very difficult. The one area that we do send multiple quotes out for, I'm going to say we did probably 5 or 6 quotes, is workers' compensation. We were able to actually maintain the current vendor with Brick Street, which was formerly the Highmark product. One of the things we're actually looking at doing is that will actually we're participating in a initial study to see if through our health insurance consortium, there's talk about maybe starting a workers' comp insurance consortium. There's actually some data that I'm getting together and sending on to those folks. They're going to have their actuaries do a sampling of the current number of districts just to see if it's even going to work or not. But I know quite a few of my colleagues and myself, when we first heard about this idea, we were very excited about it, because if it works any way like it does with the health insurance and dental insurance, we're going to save some money down the road. Maybe not the first year or two, but it's going to be interesting just to let them analyze the data and just come back to us and say, is it going to work or is it not going to work? We'll just have to wait and see. Time will tell. But as we progress through that, again, I will report to the board on that as well.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, roll call, Bonnie.
Mr. Stubenborg.
Aye.
Mrs. Warning. Aye. Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mrs. Byrne.
Aye.
Mrs. Cerucci.
Aye.
Mr. Lapsevich.
Aye.
Mr. Nola.
Aye.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Aye.
Mr. Ritter.
Aye.
That's it for the action items?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Administrative resolutions for discussion. Item number 1, new textbooks for 2017-18. Dr. Rossi, can you
Sure, we have
elaborate on that?
three textbooks / resources to be on 30-day display. Algebra 1, ELA 7 and 8, which is my perspectives, and the other one is completely digital media, no textbook, digital resource, Common Sense Media. That's actually part of our plan for our technology plan as well. So those are the three that we'd like to put on 30-day display.
Item number 2, Mr. Shaw.
Item number 2 is the Head Start and Pre-K Counts Food Service Contract. This would be the approval via the Form PD 3086, the contract between Allegheny Intermediate Unit and the Gateway School District to provide meals and snacks to be serviced at the Head Start program at Evergreen Elementary and the Pre-K Counts program located at Mosside Middle School as depicted in Exhibit A.
Questions, comments?
Continue through. Item number 3, Drexel University. A number of the universities and colleges submit agreements that have to be board approved to allow student teachers to work with our staff throughout the year. Drexel University has submitted an agreement that we would be asking the board to approve in 2 weeks. Item number 4, Technology and Learning Coaching Fellowship. Dr. Rossi?
Sure. It's a lengthy motion there. I'll just kind of summarize it. It's a Technology and Learning Coach Fellowship Program for a 1-year period. We're fortunate enough to receive a grant opportunity that will provide us with a Technology and Learning Coach for 1-year period. In order to do that, we would need this MOU signed by July 1st.
This is what we discussed at the curriculum.
Correct.
Yes.
Thank you.
Item number 5, student teachers. We do have one student teacher already seeking approval from Seton Hill University with Mr. Lassick at the high school. Item number 6, Mr. Schott.
Thank you, Mr. Short. Item number 6 is an increase for student lunch and student breakfast prices for the cafeteria fund for 17-18 fiscal year. Looking at decreasing the cost of the lunches by 10 cents and the cost of the breakfast by 5 cents. Again, this is not a item just being arbitrarily done. These increases are calculated increases by Mr. Lorenzo in the food service department, and they're to ensure the district's compliance with Section 205 of the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act of 2010 for that. So unfortunately, again, there's a required calculation he has to do each year, and these increases are in line with that calculation.
Item number 7.
Item number 7 is seeking approval of the final cafeteria fund budget for 17-18 fiscal year in the total amount of $1,942,000, reflecting an increase in expenditures of $57,000 or 3.02% more than the current 16-17 fiscal year budget. And item number 8 is the final general fund budget for a 17-18 fiscal year as it sits currently at $75,682,000 with an increase in expenditures of $4,527,000 or 6.36% greater than the general fund budget for a 16-17 fiscal year. Please note that it does not include an increase in the district's real estate tax millage rate. And also please note that the district will not be required to utilize any fund balance to balance the 17-18 fiscal year general fund budget. Item number 9, which also is an annual resolution, I believe for the 10th year. The district is able to pass on a homestead farmstead exclusion to those eligible taxpayers who have a homestead in the municipality of Monroeville and also in the borough of Pitcairn. Again, this is state funds from gaming that is neutral to the district. The district receives these funds. We reduce our calculation for current year real estate taxes by the same amount. Thereby, the current calculation is that those 8,160 folks who have a homestead exclusion will see a reduction on their upcoming tax bills of $179.15, which actually amounts to a decrease in your assessed value of $9,269.70. Item number 10 is the annual payment of the Section 81 list of bills for the month of July 2017. Again, in accordance with Board Policy 616. And again, as we do each year, we do not have a board meeting during the month of July. Similar to what we do also in the month of December as well. We will prepare that list of bills. We will forward it on to the board to have the opportunity to review, question that list of bills, and then approximately a week after that, we will release those bills. And then again, the listing will be formally acknowledged during the August meeting as well, just like we've done in previous fiscal years. Item number 11, another annual resolution for the sale, giveaway, under disposal as applicable, any old equipment, furniture, and various other miscellaneous items that are no longer serviceable for the district during a 17-18 fiscal year. And again, as we've done in the past, if there's large items that are going to be disposed of in any manner, we will alert the board ahead of time to that fact, so everyone is aware of what's going on with any of those applicable items. Item number 12 is renewal of the current veteran unemployment compensation comprehensive program with the Pennsylvania School Boards Association for a 17-18 fiscal year. It's depicted in Exhibit C, and it sets a maximum premium amount of $152,116 for the 17-18 fiscal year. Item number 13 is to request an extension of the current liquid propane gas service agreements with Feral Gas. This will be looking for a period beginning on July 1st, 2018, with end term and date and a final fixed price rate to be determined based on the current market conditions for that commodity. Please note that the next fiscal year price, which runs from July 1st, 2017 through June 30th, 2018, is currently $1.10. And also please note, please remember that we have been fortunate for the last 2 or 3 years that we've been able to get a 50 cent per gallon refund through a federal program in terms of alternative fuels through the IRS. So essentially, if we're able to still recognize that 50 cent per gallon refund essentially back to the district, we'd be netting out to 60 cents a gallon, which is quite amazing when you consider that most districts are probably paying almost $3 a gallon for diesel fuel. So again, another positive benefit to our propane-powered vehicles. Next item is seeking approval of the Title I, Title II Part A, and Title III federal funds final allocation amounts for the current 16-17 fiscal year as depicted. And all three of those funds equal $955,256 for the current 16-17 fiscal year. Next item is to seek award of bids and quotes for the Capital Reserve Fund for capital projects for a 17-18 fiscal year. And those projects are listed specifically looking at plumbing fixtures district-wide in the amount of $75,553.35. Multi-purpose room air conditioning at Evergreen, and the maximum amount, $46,800. And again, the actual vendor is to be determined. Mr. Brown is meeting with one of the vendors who submitted a bid to the district to review the project with that vendor. So in the event that the apparent lowest bidder is able to be moved forward with, this amount and then the next amount for UP HVAC would actually decrease from this amount. I believe Mr. Brown is going to meet with that individual on Friday or Monday of next week, so we'll be able to see how that turns out and make any adjustments accordingly with that. The next items listed are various interior lighting fixtures for Evergreen in the amount of $36,456.50. University Park, $33,156. Ramsey, $41,617. CSE, $45,527.50. And Gateway High School and the Sports Complex, $382,535.50 through Scott Electric. And again, that's going to LED fixtures, which actually will pay back the district and reducing our utility utilization. Plus, also, there are some various programs through the Duquesne Light Watts program and the PJM grid program. So we'll actually be able to get some funds back up front through Duquesne Light for the purchase of these items, and over the next 4 years for the PGM program. So again, once these lights go in, they'll continue to pay the district back for quite a long time. Next item is a washer for the high school band room for Pittsburgh Laundry Systems in the amount of $8,939.50, and a dryer for the high school band room, also from Pittsburgh Laundry Systems, in the amount of $4,094.50. All total amount of the above items that represent bid, $723,245.85. The quote comprised of the washer and dryer, $13,034. Total amount, $736,279.85. Now, in terms of the bid items, again, these were all part of the $3,819,000 for 17-18 fiscal year. The total estimated cost of those items was $835,000, equal to a net savings of $111,754.15. The above quote, which I will note, is actually for $18,000 and is currently on the $350,000 list. So in the event the board does not want to do that project, that would be removed from this resolution. Just want to note that right now. Again, it was estimated initially at $18,000, and it came in at $13,034 at a savings of $4,966 for that particular item.
That's not your typical Maytag there, the?
No, heavy duty commercial quality.
Just wanted to verify that.
Any other questions or comments?
Next section we have is award of various quotes for the general fund services for the 17-18 fiscal year. Again, these are depicted in Exhibit B and also below, which I will review. We have window repairs district-wide, Boulevard Glass and Metal Company Incorporated, $80 per hour, maximum of $4,000 for that project. Lawn fertilizer for the campus, Kramer Facility and Ground Solutions, $500 per application, maximum of 4 applications at $2,000. Hillside cutting on the campus to Kramer Facility and Ground Solutions, $1,200 per cut, maximum of 4 cuts at $4,800. Mulching district-wide, Kramer Facility and Ground Solutions, $3,500. Window cleaning district-wide, B&B Window Cleaning and Services, $11,800, which represents 2 cleanings, one in the fall and one in the spring. And also the following are various infield maintenance services with Sports Turf Specialties Incorporated. These would encompass the softball field at the high school, $1,460. The physical education field at the high school, $400. The high school baseball field, $1,870. The Gateway Middle School baseball infield, $1,570. And the spring 2018 infield openings, $250 per infield. 4 infields equals $1,000. Total of service quote amounts would be $32,400. And currently, all these items are currently included in Mr. Brown's maintenance budget in the general fund for 17-18 fiscal year.
Questions, comments? Seeing none? Do we have any resolutions by board members this evening? Comments from the residents on any non-agenda items this evening? Matt?
Matt Stakunas, Monroeville, PA here, parent and teacher at Gateway High School. I'm here to speak to you about the schedule changes that are happening at Gateway Middle School. I have several concerns with these changes. First, there was no input concerning the schedule changes from the middle school staff or the department chairpersons. Mr. Patelli did not ask for input from the art, technology education, computer business, fax, music teachers were not included in the schedule change conversations. There was no input from students or parents. Mr. Tully did have an incoming 7th and 8th grade, new 8th grade student scheduling meeting, but how would parents or students know that changes were made from prior school years to scheduling? These are major schedule changes for the middle school students, and this change and these schedule changes were not presented to the school board, were not put on for public display, there was no input, no comment, it was not approved by the school board. Also, added to the new schedule this year at the middle school is academic advisor. What is academic advisor, you may ask? It's a study hall. Every student at Gateway Middle School will now get one study hall per day. Middle school is and should be a place for students to explore the elective areas such as facts, art, tech ed, music, computers, business, and so forth. Classes, these types of classes, so they make better choices when entering high school and beyond. All students in 7th and 8th grade need to be and should be exposed to all the electives. Some will tell you STEAM does that. Well, I disagree. When you're taking away 45 days of tech ed, 45 days of art, 45 days of facts, 45 days of computer business, and so on, and claiming you're meeting the students' needs with a STEAM class that meets 1 day per week all year long, I would disagree. Additionally, the STEAM class is being taught by a science teacher instead of a technology education teacher and an arts teacher. Please consider taking a look at the middle school schedule and making changes so that all students are exposed and get a chance to explore areas such as art, facts, family and consumer science, music, tech ed, computers and business classes in 8th and 7th grade. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Matt. Anybody else wish to address the board on unagenda items? Reports. We'll start with.
No. Thank you, Mr. Williams. Just a quick announcement. Tomorrow night, we have, I like to call it our marquee event, where we will have close to 300 graduates at our ceremony at Pete Annamarino Stadium beginning at 7 p.m. The event is televised. Micah, are you still out there? I know we were talking about having it on YouTube as well. We are branching out. Is that correct?
Yes.
The event will be televised on YouTube. Do not ask me how to go about doing that, getting on YouTube to watch this, but I'm sure
There'll be a link on the website.
that's what I like to hear. So,
You mean it's going to be a real-time display via YouTube?
Yes, there'll be a few seconds lag because it goes through YouTube, but it will be for the most part in real time.
Okay.
John, you're not going to.
that was my reaction too, John. I was like, okay. Yeah, so we are
YouTube did real time.
being quite innovative and creative, and there will be a link on the district website for those individuals who perhaps do not have the local channel who would like to watch it on the internet. So I really look forward to having all of our board members and everyone present tomorrow night. I do advise.
So wait a minute, some of these kids could be sitting there graduating, looking at their phones, and they're looking at themselves graduating. Is that what you're saying?
That is exactly what we're saying.
Maybe they won't hear that.
Yeah. So I do advise everyone to stay tuned to the district website and also our Skyward Alert services. If we have the need to cancel or postpone, we do have a rain date that would be on Thursday. In looking at the weather, it looks as if we're going to push forward, and we will have hopefully graduation tomorrow night to celebrate the wonderful accomplishments of our students. Thank you, Mr. Williams.
Thank you. Jakey.
Nothing at this time?
Rossi.
Nothing.
Mr. Schott.
Nothing further, thank you.
Crump. Bruce, would you like to say anything?
Yeah, just, as you know, a few months ago, we started this thought of possibly doing something with Gateway Middle School's property, possibly going through a rezoning request. We have received the draft survey, I have it here. We also have the title people online now they'll work with the surveyor to put those two things together so that we get what's called an Alta survey, which is the one that everybody who would ever be interested in this property would want to see. But we certainly have enough now to go forward with the rezoning request. I'm going to suggest that the committee set a meeting date next week, and I'll invite both Mr. Maital back again and the title examiner, attorney, there to fill you in and give you an idea of how long it's going to take to get the title work done. I'm going to suggest it's going to take a couple weeks. It's not going to take a long time. But that doesn't stop the process of going forward, if you choose to, with the rezoning. I think you've already voted to do that, so we will proceed with an application, and that'll get processed. The rezoning process is first to the planning commission at the municipality, then the governing body has a public hearing. It could be the same night, but I think what they will do is hold the public hearing at their workshop session. That's been the policy that they've kind of adopted. And then a third session at their regular meeting to vote on the legislative request to possibly rezone the property. How long does that take? I'm going to suggest to you that if everything went very smoothly, which doesn't happen very often, it would take 2 months. I would suggest here you should be looking at least 3 months from the date of the application when we make the submission, because if for any reason it could get tabled either at the planning commission or at the governing body. There's no time limit on within which they have to act. So that process is ahead of us now, and we have the document now to work from in order to start that process of rezoning. Any questions?
I have one, and Steve, I know you and I have actually talked about this. When we go for the rezoning, are we also looking at subdividing that and keeping an acre, acre and a half?
It's an interesting point. We have talked about that, and one of the things I was going to suggest right along those lines is that as we proceed with this, we have time, but board members should consider issues like that. Do we want to retain an acre or 2 acres or whatever for board use?
Let's not confuse something here. Just, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but rezoning just changes the zoning classification.
I know, but I'm with you on that.
All right.
But I'm just saying, this has been on the table for years, but now we have it moving ahead. So it's time for board members, public, to raise any concerns they have. Do you want to keep a couple of acres? Will there be an absolute requirement, for example, on the part of the board that it be sold or leased to a tax entity? And any other kinds of issues that are associated with the sale or lease of this property. We don't want to get to the end of the line, have an offer on the table, and then find ourselves, boy, we didn't think this through, so on and so forth. Example, what if a buyer comes forward and says, I'll buy the corner, you all know what we're talking about, I'll buy the corner 5 acres because I want to put in a sheets or I want to put in a get-go. Is that something we want to entertain? So it really has to be some thought given to this on the part of the board, and I think Bruce has lined up some folks that have some experience there. And unless it's a bad idea, we could certainly also invite the municipality if they want to talk a little bit about that as well with us. If it is a taxable event, well, it'll be a taxable event. But if we sell it or lease it, and it generates tax revenue, it's going to generate tax revenue for the borough as well. So I would be open, if the board wants that, to inviting them to sit down and chat a little bit.
And I want to make sure we don't get, and I agree that these are, you're looking down the road.
Yes.
Dealing with municipalities and school districts, it's good to be able to look down the road. Right now, I want to focus on just getting it rezoned.
Right.
And then if you want to subdivide it, that's another process that we would go through. And all the questions that Steve raised should be things you're thinking about now, and probably have a session about it somewhere along the way.
Valerie and George and I have sort of been, honchoing this along with Bruce and Bill. So yeah, I agree with all of that. We'll get it rezoned, but we should then pause for a moment and think about those things.
You could be thinking about that now.
So with the rezoning, do we also have to apply for conditional use?
No.
School falls under?
So this would then be a non-conforming use by virtue of it existing prior to the rezoning. You could continue to use this as a school for 100 years if you chose to, as a non-conforming use. So that, Bob has a question?
Well, there is the caveat, though, if for some reason you don't use the school or you shut it down for some
Right.
brief time, you can never go back and use it.
Bob's right, there is an abandonment that can be argued. And I would suggest to you that it would be probably 2 years, but, you know, if you did it for a year and didn't use it for a year, you would run the risk of somebody making the argument that you abandoned the non-conforming use. You could also apply to the municipality and get a permit for it and renew it every year. So they have a process there to continue to renew non-conforming permits, non-conforming uses.
And Bruce and Steve, what would the categories of things be whereby we might want to subdivide it? Like storage of old equipment or tractors or?
I think just.
It could be anything you can
But
imagine.
I don't know.
All the permitted uses under B2.
C2.
C2. I thought it was B2.
I would look for the resale value. So if we sell 24 acres and we hold on to 2 acres.
And the price goes up, then
Yeah,
we've made money on it?
They develop that land.
And
now
that's
we
a
also have
good,
another parcel.
irrational, okay, I get it.
And Steve and I have talked about it for over a year now.
The other thing too, just there's a little bit over the horizon, but Bob should conduct a survey, an inventory of the chattels that are present in that building that the district would want to retain on either a lease or sale basis. There may be bleachers, generators.
iPads.
Well, I'm not iPads, but things that are considered permanent parts of the assets to be sold that we would want to retain. And then if they're substantial in nature, where do we locate them? How do we sell them? Again, just they're down the road kinds of ideas or thinking that we ought to apply to this issue.
And again, I think you should also know that in order to close a school, there's an awful lot of procedure that you have to go through, a lot of notice, a lot of time. So everybody understands, Gateway Middle School is going to be open and go through all of next year. It could be going through the next following year. And it could be that way for a long, long time. Again, there's no foreseeable change in the use of that process. All we're doing is preparing for a
possible
future somewhere down the road.
And the situation has to be ideal for this board to then accept an agreement.
This board here, sitting here, won't be making that decision because there'll be new people on board. So, this is a great, it's a thought that might, after December, change completely. So we'll recognize that it's a process. I think it's a valuable process for you, this board, and the future boards to get the property rezoned. I think that really adds a significant amount of value to that property. And that means, while it's an intrinsic value, not realized until used in some fashion in a commercial way. So what I'm suggesting to you is you're certainly not going to hurt yourself by rezoning it. You'll put on an intrinsic value to that property that is significant. Monroeville doesn't have a whole lot of land sitting around at 26 acres or 20 acres that they have a viable location with municipal services, roads. I mean, that's really cooking together, and that site has all of those things. So I'm not trying to promote the sale of it, but at least you know that intrinsically you will have a substantial asset there for the future.
Thank you.
Once we're finished with this second part, we'll also be able to speak more intelligently to any coal rights, oil, gas
Yeah, we're
rights,
looking
et
at that
cetera, because that's being researched, as the committee asked.
And in
And then
discussions-
those can be retained, they can be sold, they can be mined. All of these things are out there.
In discussions with Monroeville, we're already seeing some expansion with that area across the street from
Yes.
Gateway Middle
Right.
School. So
Right.
it's beginning time.
So I'll look to you for a date for next week or whenever you choose to.
What I usually do is I ask Bonnie to set it up, and if you'd be kind enough to do that and tie it in with the president and the super.
I want to have enough notice so to get everybody there.
And Bob Brown, too.
So I prefer like, Thursday, Friday of next week possibly.
It would need to be Thursday.
Anything else?
That's all.
Thank you, sir. Sir, student court, start with you.
All right. Congratulations to everyone that will be walking tomorrow. It's always a very good end to the year here. All the fun days at the elementary schools have been popping up on Facebook, so hopefully everyone has enjoyed those and has been safe. We haven't had any reports from those, so those are looking like they're going very well. The other thing I wanted to bring up, I forgot to bring it up under board resolution, but I had brought it up 2 months ago, is the policy, we'll just call it the transparency policy, so that we can't add things on to the agenda the day of the meeting or an hour before, get handed a piece of paper. Bruce's office had kind of finalized what I had put down as a rough draft, and I'll just read the resolution. And there's really no point in making an action item today because it has to go on 30-day display, so we can do it at the next meeting. We don't have school board meeting in July, and then in August we can adopt it.
Yeah, I'd sent out a draft to Chad because he asked me to put something together. I had some notes from when he gave me the elements of what he wanted to do and asked him to tweak it. I don't know whether he's tweaked it or what, so go ahead, Chad.
Very good. So the resolution of the Gateway School District establishing a policy concerning the introduction of board petitions and resolutions by individual board members, whereas individual Gateway school directors from time to time present and propose resolutions and petitions to be considered by the board at its workshop meeting or regular meeting, and whereas there's a desire of the Gateway School Board to provide notice and an opportunity to study the proposed resolution or petition in advance by the individual directors and by the public. Now therefore be it resolved, whatever the date may be, Section 1, no resolution or petition presented by an individual board member can be considered at a workshop meeting or at a regular board meeting unless the entire board and the public has received at least 4 days' notice of such a future presentation, and each board member is provided an actual copy of the petition or resolutions and any other documents to be considered by the board at the next meeting. Section 2, this policy may be excused only when 2/3 of the majority of the school board shall vote to consider such resolution or petition at its workshop meeting or regular meeting without such prior notice. Section 3, all resolutions or parts of the resolution which are inconsistent herewithin are hereby repealed. Section 4, if any section, clause, provision, or portion of this resolution shall be held invalid or unconstitutional by any court of the competent jurisdiction, such decision shall not affect any other section, clause, provision, or portion of this resolution, so long as it remains legally enforceable, minus the invalid portion. So, in short, everything would have to be given to the board and be posted for the public to view with a minimum of 4 days, hopefully more, but the minimum of 4 days, so that board members can discuss it, can gather more information, the public can be made aware of it, come to the public meetings and speak to it. However, also realizing that there are some instances where things come up on a very short notice and must be passed due to time constraints. So that's why we would leave Section 2 in there, where if 6 of the 9 members believe we need to pass this evening, we're able to override that.
Chad, I think the proper title is study session, not workshop meeting. Is that right? These are called study sessions? That's the proper title?
Sure.
So if you just make that universal, yeah.
Thank you.
Because there could be other sessions that we hold that really might be, project workshops or something like that. You don't want to tangle that into this.
Very
This is
good.
just for the regular sessions and the study sessions, right?
Totally noted.
Good.
Okay, you've read it. I didn't hear you change much that I had given to you, so I'll send it off to Bonnie so she'll have it tomorrow.
And so I just ask that we vote for putting it on 30-day display at the next meeting. So this has been discussed a little bit now, so I just wanted to bring that up.
Good, well done.
Bonnie will have it tomorrow.
Great. Can you repeat the part, the bit about the repeal?
This policy may be excused only when 2/3 of the majority of the school board shall vote to consider such a resolution or petition as workshop or study session meeting or regular meeting without such prior notice.
Actually, you used the word repeal.
Resolutions or parts of the resolutions which are inconsistent herewithin are hereby repealed.
That would be backlog.
Right.
If there's anything that's ever happened under Gateway School District.
We'd have a lot of work from the past 2 months, Yellow.
That did not make this would be repealed immediately.
No.
No, he means policies.
If there was a previous resolution that dealt with this subject, this would take precedent.
Okay,
That's
Not
all.
things we voted
Thank
on,
you.
just
Thank
the
you.
policies.
I got it.
And there isn't any, so there is none.
Okay.
That's standard
I
language.
asked for clarity, thank you.
Very good.
Good question.
So that's all I have there. From the same standpoint, last meeting, we had gone over the HVAC units and looking at how that appeared to the public, to other board members. So that's in line with a lot of plethora of other things that have come through same day, right? The 360 group over the junior high, the Teamsters bonus, et cetera. So I rewatched the tape. I do want to publicly apologize to Mr. O'Donnell. So at the last meeting, I seem to personally attack you. I don't want it to be a personal attack, but I do want people to understand that we do need to be transparent. Hopefully this policy allows for that. Steve had mentioned he'll try to have better transparency or better information being passed along to board members. So I do want to apologize to him, and that's all.
Thank you, Mr. Nola.
Nothing tonight, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Lapsevich.
I just got a couple of things to say. One thing to say to a couple of my colleagues. Happy birthday, Mr. Short, and happy birthday, George Lapsevich. Thank you.
Happy birthday to me.
Happy birthday. No, I just want to say that today I had the pleasure of face painting at the 6th grade picnic at Mosside Middle School. And it was a blast. I love doing that. The kids were so well behaved. The parent volunteers that came out, I just want to say thank you. And to the faculty, the teachers that were there, the guidance counselors. There were so many people there. It was such a great event and such a fun day. I encourage all of you to just be involved with the kids and get to know the faculty. And it really was just a joy to be with the kids. I think I painted faces, arms, legs, calves from 9:30 a.m. until about 2 with about a 30-minute break. You know, 6th grade, you think, are they still going to like face painting? They love it. It was a blast. It was a great day. And I just want to, again, publicly thank everybody that was involved in the event. So that's all I have.
Thank you.
Mr. Short, just help me understand this a bit. When the issue came up by Mr. Stakunas about the scheduling and not involving teachers and parents, et cetera, is that a common practice that we do it that way?
Well, I think what Mr. Stakunas was referring to was, for the most part, the allotment of time for specials and/or electives, how they were being juggled around this year. There's no significant changes to the core subject areas other than what we had talked about during the curriculum meeting, which was the ELA block of time, really moving the reading and the English merged into a, if you want to call it, 120-minute block of time.
With the, also raised an issue relative to a study session being added for every child. Am I correct about that?
Study hall.
A study
hall.
The activity period that Mr. Telly is referring to will be absorbed through a number of different electives that children will have the opportunity to take after they perhaps might have a music in one of their special areas. Am I saying that correctly, Dennis? You had conversations with Rocco.
The academic advisory period is instructionally driven. I mean, Mr. Stakunas has a few inaccuracies in his statement. It's not just the study hall. Students won't be sitting there with nothing to do. It's an opportunity for students to get remediation. The ILIT program that we talked about during the curriculum night, they'll have an opportunity to use that. And they'll also be able to be cycled through any electives that they may miss based on the way that the schedule's structured. So there was a lot of thought by Mr. Telly and Ms. Cheslock in putting that into action. It's by no means a place to just put kids to sit there and look out the window.
Okay. All right. The next issue I'd like just to the first time I heard about the YouTube, or using YouTube to, the first thing that came to my mind is, do we really want to do that? And what if a couple of youngsters, I'm sure ours would never do this, but would, take advantage of the national platform that YouTube presents itself to do or say something that might not be exactly what the district would want to see out there.
We do televise live our graduation ceremony via local TV. That does reach, I don't know how many communities, but.
It doesn't have the reach, though, YouTube has.
Correct. Mhm.
Okay, so I'm just throwing that out for people to think about.
There's the time delay factor of a couple of seconds that allows Micah to hit the pause button.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's less restrictions on the content on YouTube compared to our local community channel.
Mhm.
So there is actually less restrictions on YouTube itself. And you still have to opt into it, so someone still has to choose to watch our stream. Whereas everyone actually in this community actually does receive either 13 or channel 44.
Or just sort of a word to the wise, okay? I wanted to spend a minute or two on the capital project tracker. There are a number of items that are coming up for vote. The committee has met, again, has reviewed all of this with Bob Brown. We continue to run under budget. At this point in time, we're about $250,000 under budget, with only one major item left to be explored, and that has to do with the HVAC control systems. And that's a major item. However, a number of the control systems come with the packages that are being installed or brought in by train. Am I not correct? Just say yes and remove them. Yes. So I fully anticipate that we're going to end up under the $3.8 million. By how much, I don't know. Bob, if you want to add more to the control issue?
No, they're just computer control systems, so there's a lot to that and a lot to evaluate. So, but some we've already do have that you've already voted on, which was the Ramsey and the high school.
Which is
so
the big
they
ones,
were the big ones actually.
The exterior lighting came in overbid. The water conservation came in dramatically under our cost. The air conditioning units, as Paul mentioned, for the all-purpose rooms, still have to be explored a little bit more so that Bob's comfortable with the bidders, but there's a cap on that, if I'm correct, of $110,000. The architectural consultant fees, we know we're saving on that. Just as you look at these schedules, water conservation consultant and lighting consultant will not spend anything on those. And staff support, probably about half of what we budgeted, just because we got started a little bit later. The only other item to mention is that Bill added restroom remodels sort of at the 11th hour. Now it's part of the $3.819 million. Yeah, and we'll start on those, and they'll be completed. However, whether they're not all going to be done this summer. But certain component parts of the remodeling will have already been secured. The lighting, the mirrors, the plumbing fixtures, those kinds of things are already in other bids. What we have to work on is the flooring and the walls and things of that sort, and we're not there yet. You threw me under the bus, Bill. But listen, we're
tire tracks, right?
We're coming in under the $3.18 million.
So I can maybe elaborate on the bathrooms. Going back 15 years, actually, to the construction of the high school, which was 1956, 57. Those bathrooms are currently still intact. So if you ever venture into Gateway High School and you use the restrooms, it's as if you're going back in time to 1957, 58. During one of the renovations, it was planned to completely redo fixtures, tile, sinks, everything, partitions. However, at that time, it was thought that our maintenance, Mr. Brown, yeah, I realize you were not present during that time, would handle the renovations. And here we are, 12 to 15 years later, after our major renovation of the high school, and we're still walking into 1957 restrooms. Yes, and they even smell like 1957. So in the process of really trying to work on 1 or 2 bathrooms at a time, we thought we would, spread this out over the course of the year internally through Mr. Brown's budget.
But we'll get it. We'll get it. We'll get it done.
If you need to walk up to the high school, I could walk you in and you'll leave and go, that's what 1957 smells like.
All right, we'll get those, we anticipate getting those done within the $3.8 million as well. And then just 6 smaller items. We'll be voting on the ball field equipment, the grounds work, the window cleaning, and some of those windows haven't been cleaned for a long, long time. And by the way, there's thousands of windows, and that's about $5,500 for cleaning, which was a great job on Bob's part. Glass repair, if you walk through the high school, you'll see a number of windows that are broken. If we approve it, we'll have them taken care of that. Evergreen and University Park, the air conditioning is working. The budget for the coffee shop is in the number of items coming up for vote. It'll be kept under $50,000, and that'll include the security component part as well. And 4 of us have been pretty actively involved in monitoring the work at Evergreen, and that continues to come along nicely. So if you have a chance, a couple of weeks from now, maybe after, I don't know if they've started to work on the grass cutting and things, but everything that we laid out, albeit minor, they've all been taken care of, and with a few exceptions, we're running ahead on that, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. O'Donnell. Ms. Byrne?
Yeah, I would like to go back to the Gateway Middle School schedule changes. Forgive me, I don't have kids in this building yet, so I just want to understand this a little bit better. So currently, how much time do children have to take an elective? Like 1 period or 2 periods? How does that work?
From Mr. Telly, next year for 7th grade, everyone will take Digital Fluency 1, and they'll have an opportunity to take the elective, so they'll be cycled through. Because with the middle school model, you want to have children be able to be exposed to as much as possible. That'll be matched up on a 45-day rotation. If a student has band or orchestra, then there's a few of the electives that they won't be able to take initially. However, that academic advisory is another time slot that's going to be built into the day to offer them time to pick up any of those electives that they may have missed.
Okay, so we're essentially adding another class, digital
Yes.
fluency. And then we're adding a study hall, but it's not necessarily study hall, it's remediation. But if your child doesn't require the remediation, they can take an elective.
Yes, they could pick up an elective as well. Mr. Telly's put a lot of thought into this as an instructional leader. What he did is he went through the schedule and he shaved off some time from some of the lunch
We
periods.
were discussing that, yeah.
And he was able to create time in the schedule to focus on academics, which I think is an excellent idea.
So the remediation classes, they're going to sit down and use software that's designed specifically for the help that they need, and there's going to be a teacher in the room then helping them?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, and it's going to be differentiated. Some students may be on the iLit software.
Okay.
Some students may be picking up some of the electives that they didn't previously get because they were in band or orchestra. So it's going to be differentiated support.
Okay.
Or in the form of electives.
And I think what's also important that, we did speak to Mr. Telly, we were on a conference call with him last week, that all students will be exposed to the various forms of electives or specials that we offer at Gateway Middle School. It may not happen in 7th grade based on perhaps a band or chorus pathway that they like. It may happen in 8th grade, but they would all have that exposure to then determine the pathway they want to create whenever they enter the high school.
And so then I guess my final question is, if your child needs extra help and requires the additional help in the study hall, they still have a chance to take an elective even though they're still doing digital fluency?
Yes.
Okay, so they still have an option of taking at least one elective. Okay, thank you.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I know we talked about this a little bit at the curriculum meeting, but this is similar, not exactly, but similar to the TAG, the Targeted Accelerated Growth at the high school, in that students that require remedial or additional class time will.
Possibly, yes. The only extended period of time would come from the ELA block. And that's tied in with the My Perspectives, which through Pearson does recommend 100 minutes, 120 minutes of instructional time.
But that academic period, if the kid's struggling.
If needed, yes.
I just want to say congratulations to the graduates, and I wish all the students a safe and happy summer. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Mr. Ritter.
Steph, you took the words right out of my
I'm so
mouth.
sorry.
Way to go, teachers. Way to go, students. Enjoy the long summer and have fun, and let's get ready to do it again in September, okay? That's all I have, Mr. Williams.
Thank you. Ms. Warning.
Thanks, Scotty. First off, I want to congratulate all the graduates from the high school and all the students going up from fourth grade to the 5-6 building, the sixth graders going to 7-8, and the eighth graders going up to the high school. I stopped over at UP today to drop off to a teacher that always loses something that she asks me every year to get, but they were having their send-off day, and the kids just were having a great time, and one of the students came over and said, "We don't get recess today." They were outside all day. No recess. They just did not have the recess period. They all had a really good time. And I want to thank Mr. Short and administration again for putting Ms. Hoffner over there. She's done a remarkable job. Everything has really turned around over there. I want to thank that. I shared with administration earlier this evening, it was brought to my attention that I guess they have the teachers and aides. The teachers are taking care of the recess at the schools. And then they have the aides that are doing the SSR. And looking into that, if they would bring back the aides for the lunch, the teachers would be able to do more of the classwork when looking at it, that the students are actually losing 30 hours of instructional time because of the SSR. And if the teachers were in the classroom and the aides were out on the playground area, it would be, I think, more beneficial to our students. So hopefully, administration can look at that and, do something with that. Special thank you again to Mr. Short, Mr. Murphy, and all the elementary principals. Last Friday, the first day that the seniors had off, they had set up that the seniors would go back to their elementary schools, which they started at. It was a very emotional day. They pulled up in their bus. They got off the bus in their cap and gowns. Pomp and Circumstance was playing. Not having a student graduate, I actually choked up. It was watching the kids go back to where they all started. It was very, to the teachers and to the students. The students lined the halls, the elementary students lined the halls and clapped for the kids. And they were so proud. It was such a good example to the younger kids that, you have to put the studies and everything first, and this is what happens. So thank you again for setting all that. And Bonnie, thank you for setting the buses up. Mr. Schott, question. We've talked about it before, the delinquent taxes that we've talked about. Has anything been done on those that you had mentioned, maybe putting on the websites or?
I received some information. I have to follow up one more time with our contact down there. They were preparing a list of those entities who are not currently on any payment plans. So what our intent is to get that list of folks and initially start to publish that on our website for that. So once I have that list, I'll report that to the board, send that out, and we'll make that initial step. Because again, with that, there's no cost to doing that. Then we can evaluate the next step, which would be to most likely put a copy of that into the Post-Gazette as well for that. But again, I will follow up tomorrow with our contact to see where she's at with sorting out those items. Because again, we wanted to make sure that we had everyone properly on there, that no one who was making payments or on the payment plan was not improperly included in that list.
Okay, fine, thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Mrs. Crump, I know you were out last week, but the equity director, has anything more been done or looked into with that?
We are working on the job description. Dr. Chapey and I have been doing some investigating with Pittsburgh Public and a couple of other school districts. Once we get the job description drafted, then we'll post it.
Okay.
Yes, Mrs. Crump is under the weather. That's not her typical voice. So.
Sounds more like you.
That's
Dr.
true.
Chakey, just out of curiosity, the number of students that will be, I guess, exposed to this trial period, the pilot program, we're talking Cleveland Stewart and Evergreen. Someone mentioned to me, we're only talking about 30 students that are below the academic level where they should be. So that's who they would be at the elementary schools. Am I correct in what I'm hearing on that, or?
Well, it kind of varies. If we're talking that the equity director is going to touch all students within the whole district, then that's another number. But if we're just talking about students, African-American students in CSE and Evergreen, then it's a different number, which is significantly smaller, but it's still more than if we're only talking about African-American students that did not meet the threshold for proficiency within the PSSA. That would be the lowest. But we've gone and bounced back and forth a couple times on whether or not the director's going to go district-wide or whether the director's going to work only with 2 buildings. So it's difficult to answer that because it can be at various numbers.
Okay, all right, thank you. I just wanted, wasn't sure of that. Okay, and I guess.
Just for clarity, the motion was for, with the full-time equity director, was for district-wide. Correct.
So I thought we were just doing a pilot program with 2 schools.
No, you guys voted that one down. So we
I
did
think
the
it's up to the equity director to kind of decide what should happen, too.
We are currently, and Trish just returned on Monday, but currently putting together a job description that will highlight everything that we're looking for within that position. I do know that Trish has also, and through Dennis and his contacts, reached out to Pittsburgh City School Districts that have a number of different positions within their departments concerning equity. So we're going to be pulling from a number of different areas when we create that job description. So we should have that soon and be able to post it, and we'll get that information to everyone.
And with that, I wish everyone a happy and safe summer. Don't forget to read, do a little bit of homework while you're off, and that's it.
Stay on YouTube.
Thank you, Bill.
Watch graduation.
I'd just like to congratulate the class of 2017. Wish Mr. Short a happy birthday. Mr. Lapsovich, happy birthday. Neil, you have a birthday?
I do have a birthday, but it's not like right now.
And with that, I look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed?
Aye.
We're adjourned.